For the person who is sick and tired of feeling rejected by the opposite sex, unchosen, you just simply want a relationship. You dream about it every single night, beating yourself up that you could have done differently, or wondering what went wrong, or having your heart broken because of what's happening behind the scenes that you don't know about with your already romantic interest. How do we move away from this position into a new position where we're in a fulfilling, healthy relationship? Hi, my name is Yenovah Tylervite, and I'm a dating and relationship coach and mentor. Those words give me the ick, but that's what I aim to be as best as possible, and I hope to give the best possible tips and tricks and advice and hacks, strategies, I don't know, just things that you can use and take away and use in the real world. So how do we move away from this position, from the A position to the B position? Because this is what change is. Change is simply moving from A to B. That's all change is. So how do you change from A to B? Well, you look at someone chasing after you with a knife, and then you look at the person who's chasing. That person is running. In order to make the person to stop running, that you have various means at your disposal to make the person stop running. But if you just simply stop chasing them, like the guy with the knife, then the person who is running at some point has no reason to continue running. They will stop. You change from A to B. And the process with iteration is like this over and over and over again. We're always moving from an A to a B state. So just know that it is very 100% possible to move from one place to another. And most of the change takes place mentally beforehand. It doesn't happen in the physical reality first. If you are a beggar on the street, nobody wants to look at a beggar on the street. You look away from him, you move as fast away from him as possible because you know he's reeking of this aura that screams something off. And if I was giving advice to that beggar, well, you need to move from A to B. It really is that simple. Now, his physical vessel might not necessarily change, but mentally, if he can mentally change first and follow through with action, where his thoughts and his words, they all match up, then he will at some point move from A to B. And it can take a bit of time, just basically like molding clay. And when you see this beggar again, you can't put your finger on it, but you know you've seen this person before. It's a completely different being. And the same is true for us when we're navigating and entering into relationship spaces. We're just changing from A to B, and so are our counterparts. This is how I come to understand these things. Now, one thing when it comes to entering into a relationship is that there is a thing called cause and effect. That is a universal law. But there are various different layers and levels and different truths to what can actually bring about an effect. For example, the emotion of sadness can be brought about by multiple various causes. There's no one specific guaranteed cause. Now, when it comes to relationships, there are a few analytical, mechanical, and logical reasons as to why people should be together or want to have relations, populate the earth. But a lot of relationships are very emotional based. This means that the way to enter into a relationship, it's going to be outside that logical, analytical space. It's not supposed to make sense when you enter into a relationship with someone. You know someone personally who's in a toxic relationship, that person doesn't want to leave. It's because it's emotional. Yes, it makes sense that they're abusive or they do drugs or something weird like that, or that they don't have their act together. There's no logical reason to be together. You argue and you criticize and you point fingers, but that person, even if it's you yourself, can't seem to let go of that. It's an emotional thing. I saw a guy this morning just wearing Crocs and shorts, and he's got hairy legs, and he's not particularly fancy looking, but his girlfriend, I assume, who was right next to him, she was dressed really fancy. You'd think the guy isn't supposed to look so chill, so casual next to his hot lady friend. But that's the thing, it's not logical. It's completely emotional. And another thing about these emotions, especially love, is that it's self-induced. And how do I mean by this self-induced emotion? There are specific people I recommend listening to. One specific person is Russell Brunson. He is like an internet marketing coach person. He's been around for maybe a decade or two. And he just teaches businesses and marketing and funnels and websites. Now, his particular advice, it's got nothing to do with dating. But when you look at the deals, how deals work, how the mental operations of our mind work, you'll realize that relationships are just deals. And part of a deal can be commitment. And when it comes to, let's say, the emotion of wanting to commit to someone, that is self-induced. Imagine someone asking you, hey, I expect and demand commitment from you. Depending on how that's said, that may come across as very high level maintenance and unnecessarily forthcoming. It's kind of like saying, I want to make sure we have sex in this relationship all the time, otherwise I'm out. It's a bit confronting and it's a bit abrupt. There's just something off about it. Whereas these things, such as sex and commitment, these are self-induced emotions that we give at our own expense as a gift to another party. This is how this actually operates. In a business setting, commitment or loyalty can be like for a brand. For me, I like Xbox in gaming. I like all kinds of gaming, but I'm specifically a little bit more loyal to Xbox. Even if Xbox is kind of trash these days with their ridiculous pricings, I'm still loyal to Xbox. I'm also a Ford lover. I love to drive Fords, especially Falcons, Mustangs. Even if Fords are typically known for some people to be shitboxes, I'm still loyal to Ford. I've had some of my old Fords break down, but I'm still loyal to Ford because I really like Ford. It doesn't make a lot of logical sense. It's just an emotional thing. Same with the iPhone. The iPhone, I hear, isn't really the best phone on the market. It really is just about the status, the image, the ego feeling. There are way better phones out there. But for someone like me, I do choose iPhone, despite some of the rubbish that they've done in the last few years, partially for some of those reasons. But it is an emotional reason. It's not logical. I've got customers too who come to me. I'm the first person on their mind they come to when they need me to help them with something. And I didn't make them do that. They self-induced that. Some customers, they come to me every once in a while. Some maybe just every few days. But some are loyal. Some really like the way I help them. And that's a self-induced feeling. I really hope I'm getting this self-induced feeling across, because that's really important when it comes to the relationship setting. In this emotional space of the development and creation and agreement of there being a relationship, it's all self-induced. This is why we can't necessarily make someone else do something against their will, not unless you possess the sufficient leverage and the means that enables the other party to see things differently. What that leverage is, I don't know right now, but I know that leverage can exist. That's the two things you need to make any relationship work like that. You have to have the belief that you can and the leverage. And I'm confident that's sufficient to manifest. And when it comes to the leverage, there's different layers and levels and different spectrums to the leverage. Just like how I talk about ripple effects affecting another party and in turn affecting you, and in your response setting the stage back and forth, that's a much more surface level effect and cause. But to create a much more internal and impactful ripple effect in another person so as to induce some type of self-imposed change, to cause someone to open up instead of be closed, you would need to have some type of default aura about you that strikes the other party like lightning. And it's not something that you can pull off necessarily automatically unless you practice something. Practice something like moving from A to B, being in that B position, for example. That beggar, the beggar who caused people to walk away from him, the beggar who caused people to look away from him and you don't want to talk to him. You become person B, and person B has this aura about him that you can't put your finger on, but he strikes you as someone like you can't stop thinking about. How did he do that? What was he thinking? What was he feeling? What was he doing? Why was he doing those things? Does he enjoy those things? Is it all fake or is it real?